Oh yeah. Yeah, we finally did it. This is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, and I have waited so long to upgrade my camera, guys. I've been drooling over this since the Pocket 4K came out, and it's a good thing I waited because now there's the 6K. Ended up getting a great deal on it. Anyways, it's finally here. So we're gonna do two things today. First of all, I wanna talk a bit about the Blackmagic, why I got it, the features that I was looking for, as well as why I finally felt it was time to upgrade from the Sony that I'd been using. The other thing we're doing, as you probably figured out by all the stuff on the table, is we're gonna be putting together my new handheld rig for the Blackmagic. I'm gonna be talking about all the parts that I picked out and why I picked them, and that's gonna hopefully help you if you're gonna put together your own handheld rig to kind of figure out what's right for you. So I've been using a Sony a6500 for all my work for about 4 years now, and it's a great camera. I mean, the 4K is super crisp. I got tons of use out of it, and I'm still very happy with it. I still recommend it to a lot of people even to this day. I was starting to really see the limitations of that camera when I started getting a lot more hands-on with my color grading, trying to shift colors around and be a lot more precise with my grades. And I noticed that the footage, because it's so compressed and because it's only 8-bit color, it really does start to fall apart, and there's not a whole lot that I can do with it and still achieve a nice clean look. So not only could I not really do what I wanted to with my footage when it came to color grading, but now a lot of the work I'm doing involves a lot more slow motion, and I just didn't have a camera that did good slow motion. And lastly, I just wanted to get a camera that I knew I could buy and the image quality was not gonna be taken over by a better camera in 3 years. I didn't want to look back on my old projects and go, oh, yeah, I remember when cameras were terrible. Because the Blackmagic shoots 6K and it's RAW, I know that in 10 years, the footage is still gonna look good. So I could not be happier with the fact that I, on a whim, went on Craigslist, found an awesome deal with a cage, with extra batteries, all that good stuff. So I'm very happy. Speaking of the cage, let's go ahead and start rigging this up. So this is a small rig cage. A lot of the parts here are gonna be from small rig. All the links for these parts are gonna be in the description if you want to buy them as well. 85% of what I shoot is just handheld. So we're building out a handheld rig and we need a good foundation for that. So we need a set of rails. So here I've got the small rig 12-inch rails, and I've also got the Blackmagic Manfrotto base plate as well. And the reason I picked that up is because my Ronin S uses the exact same plate as this does. The Ronin's really the only other rig that I have, so making it easy to switch between those two rigs without having to take the camera off the handheld rig, take the quick release plate off, put a new one on, it's just a pain. So being able to have them be compatible with each other means I can just slide it off, slide it onto the Ronin, way less downtime, which means on a shoot, I'm gonna be able to get more takes. Start by popping that guy on there first. Next up, we have this small rig top handle. And this is great for just carrying it around. It's really well balanced, but the main reason I got this one is because it has mounting points on it. Let me show you what I was dealing with before, hold on. All right. This is the small rig handle that I had before. It's got a great rubber grip. It's super comfortable. This would be my go-to, except that it only has a cold shoe mount at the back. So if I've got a hand here, that means I'm mounting my monitor on the back. Now, not only was the monitor in the way, but this stupid aperture monitor that I have that's on the Sony right now, if you slightly bump the battery that's in the back, the whole thing just turns off. Mounting the monitor on the end of the handle is the main reason I got this, but the second reason I got it is it has these two anchor points. Some of these top handles that are available just have one screw, and you screw it in, you think, oh, that's great, it's so handy. Except when it starts to get loose, and then it starts turning on your camera, and it's a nightmare. This handle fixes that because it's got these two tiny anchor points that are in the top of the Blackmagic cage. So even if the screw itself is loose, it's not gonna wiggle on you whatsoever. However, it actually does have an Allen key that fits into the top handle, so you're never going to lose it. It's magnetic and it just stays in there perfectly. You can actually use this, stick it through the holes in the little thumb screw, and use that as leverage to make sure it's really tight and that it's really secure. The reason we have this rail system is so we can add a lot of attachments that are super helpful. And the first thing I'm gonna add is a lens support. This Sigma lens is pretty heavy, so I wanna add a little bit of extra support to kind of take the weight and the strain off of the actual mount of the camera. Again, we're using a small rig part. This is fully adjustable for the height of your lens support, and it just has one screw to tighten both the rods, which helps save some time. The next thing that goes on is my follow focus, and this one is very hard to say. I'm gonna say it's Fotga. I think I'm gonna put the link for that and the spelling and all of that in the description. I got this off of Amazon. It is not a cheap follow focus. It is a few $100, but it is really solid. It's all metal construction. You're not gonna find a bunch of plastic parts, and it works really well. It's probably the best kind of middle ground between spending a lot of money on something super professional that you're actually gonna see on all the Hollywood film sets, and something that's just kind of cheap and isn't that reliable. This thing's really sturdy and really reliable. I'm very happy with it, but it is a little bit more expensive. I'll do a review on this at some point because it's fantastic and it's really worth the money, but we got a lot of parts to put on this thing, so that can wait. Now, I know I said the majority of what I do is handheld, but sometimes that also means using it as a shoulder rig. So I've got a couple small parts that I can add on here to make switching between just a small handheld rig and a shoulder rig a little bit easier. Another small rig piece here, this is specifically so that you can add a horizontal rail to your current rail system and then attach handles onto that. So you're gonna see how that all looks way at the end. Next up, we have a matte box, and honestly, I don't really recommend this one. I just got it because it was super cheap on Facebook Marketplace. This is the Film City MB600. I've never heard of that company. If I can find this online, I will put a link in the description, but you're probably better off getting the new small rig matte box, which is super cheap, so I'm gonna link that one instead. Now, as cool as a matte box looks on a camera rig, I don't actually use it for anything. There's no filters in here. I don't even own any filters right now. I only use it for two reasons. First of all, it gives me some protection. If something hits my camera rig, I know it's gonna hit the matte box and not the lens itself. And secondly, it's an excuse to add a little bit of weight to my rig. This doesn't have any in-body stabilization, so you kind of need to rig it out and add some weight to it in order to smooth out your handheld motion. So does added weight help smooth out your footage? Absolutely. Does it also make you super jacked because you're carrying around this heavy rig all day? No. No. All right, now we have a couple things to add on to the cage itself. First off, I am using these Samsung SSDs, just like everybody. This is the 1 terabyte model. It just gives me a little bit of added safety. 500 gigs is not a lot, so I just want to play it safe and have some extra room to work with. Obviously, I'm going to use Small Rig's dedicated Samsung SSD holder for that. And unfortunately, it does use an Allen key. Like I was talking about before, it's a giant pain in the butt. But luckily, I bought Small Rig's little multi-tool kit, and that's gonna make my life a lot easier. You've got basically every tool you need for small rig parts. If you don't have one of these multi-tools, but you use a lot of small rig parts, I just have to ask, why do you hate yourself? Now, the only trouble I had with this SSD holder is that if you don't put it in quite the right spot, you can't get the SSD in there. You can't take it out without removing the entire clamp just because the top handle's in the way. So you kind of have to put it at the right spot. See if I get the angle right. Perfect. Now you can clamp that down. And before we add the cable in and actually clamp that down, I did go ahead and get the cable clamp from Small Rig. It's just a little bit of added protection. You've got these cables that go right in here, and if something bumps them, they could rip out, they could damage the input jack. So I'm just gonna play it safe. Make sure you get one of these. You don't wanna invest a lot in your camera and your camera rig, only to have your HDMI port get ripped out or something like that. So once that's on, we can now attach our cable. Make sure you clamp in both ends of that cable to make sure that it's not going anywhere. Now, as I said earlier, I have done an actual paid shoot with this already. It wasn't a full music video performance, it was just a guitar playthrough, but it turned out great. I'm really happy with the footage. I'll show some of that right now. But one of the biggest issues I have, as I'm sure you know, is the battery life on these cameras is just ridiculous. You're lucky if you get 45 minutes of shooting on a single Canon battery. There's a few ways you can tackle this issue, but I'm gonna deal with it by using V-mount batteries. These are 3 separate parts from SmallRig. I just pre-assembled them for the sake of time. I know, I'm a fraud. This whole video is a sham. We've got some rail mounts here, and that's attached to a cheese plate, which is just the best name. I love it. And then on the cheese plate, we have the V-lock assembly that actually holds your V-mount battery for you. Now this just slides on the back of the rails in front of the screen. And I know, I can hear you typing that comment. Oh, what's the point of a touchscreen if you just... Listen, most of the functions that I need to turn on and off at any given time are already assigned to the function buttons like false color. And on top of that, all my basic camera settings, not only can they be adjusted from the front of the camera, but all of them are gonna be in presets anyways. So as long as I just leave it on the preset menu, all I have to do is just sneak in, tap a preset, and then I'm good to go again. It's really not a big hassle. And trust me, if you're trying to rig out the Blackmagic, you're probably going to have something in front of the screen. Unless you get that sick monitor that's got all the touchscreen functions on the actual monitor and it controls the Blackmagic, like that's pretty awesome. But clearly I have no money left for that. So once that's screwed on, now you just need your V-mount battery. And I got the FX Lion Nano 1, which is just adorably small. This has a ton of output options and actually input options. USB-C, micro USB, D-tap. It has everything that you could possibly need, which is really helpful. And you don't have to worry about carrying all the right cables on set. Chances are you probably have something else on set that already takes the same cable as this does. The battery just slides on, locks into place, and then there's no way you're getting that thing off. Well, maybe you can. You know, you might be stronger than me because I'm not, but it should be pretty secure. This is an Alvin's Cables D-tap to 2-pin connector, and it is coiled. So regardless of the length that you need it to run on your rig, you're not gonna have a bunch of stray cabling that you need to use Velcro ties on and cable manage somehow. It's all pretty much done for you. Now all that's left is going to be the monitor, which I had to take off the Sony, and now I can actually mount that. But I'm using a special mount from SmallRig, which again is one of their monitor mounts that just makes your life so much easier, as with everything SmallRig. You can adjust the resistance of this so that it can tilt if you want it to tilt, or if you want it to be rock solid and not move for any reason, you can tighten it up and make sure it doesn't move. Once it's on the monitor, you just slide it into the end of the top handle, and then tighten it with a thumb screw and you're good to go. I just use one of these massive Sony NPF batteries, but luckily I've got lots of clearance here. Once again, a coiled cable to the rescue for the HDMI. Now I've got power for everything. I've got my monitor. I can still access my screen. I've got my follow focus. Now the only thing is that sometimes, as I mentioned, I need to do a shoulder rig mode. So let me show you how easy it is to switch from this handheld rig to my shoulder rig. If you remember that rail piece we put on earlier, we're gonna start by taking a rail with a handle and we're gonna slide that through. Next, we just pop on the other handle. And then for the shoulder pad itself, all we do is just take this battery plate, we slide the whole thing forward, and we've got just enough room on the rails to add it. And that's all it takes to go from handheld to shoulder rig. I can just tilt this monitor up so I can see it at this angle, and then I'm done. The actual weight of the rig is well distributed too, so I'm very happy with how this turned out. And that's the rig. Thank you so much for hanging out with me while I build it. All of these parts are gonna be linked in the description below if you wanna pick them up yourself. And if you liked this, I'd appreciate you subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.